In Jamaica, transport operators have slowly returned back to work after withdrawing their services at the start of the week, island-wide, to strong-arm the government into implementing a ticket amnesty for public transport vehicle operators who've piled up traffic tickets and attendant fines. The government is set to host a meeting with stakeholders to see what from here. But the fact is that the attempts by the transport operators to stick up the government, that attempt has failed badly. To talk about the issues in the broader transport sector, which of course would have led the taxi operators and bus drivers to the point of frustration which saw them withdraw their services, is the opposition spokesman on transport, Mikail Phillips. He's the Member of Parliament for North West Manchester, and he's been a member of the legislature in Jamaica since 2011. Yeah? Mikail Phillips, welcome back to the conversation, sir. Good.
Thanks.
All right, let's start at the point of these transport operators now. We heard from a meeting they had organized by the Transport, let me get it right, Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, a rather odd acronym, but it works. TODS and Edgerton Newman. They sent a missive that they had met with their members. 99% had voted to withdraw services at the start of the week, and it was clear what their plan was. That plan, and notwithstanding what I said at the top about it failing, but the discomfiture it caused for so many Jamaicans across the island laid bare problems in the transport system, not least of which is the fact that transport groups can effectively, regardless of which party is in power, stick up the government on any day and lock down the country. I wanted to talk about the issues that you are looking on as the Shadow Minister of Transport that have brought us to this point of vulnerability where we are effectively hostage to the whims and fancies of transport operators.
Well, let me start out by saying that if we look at what transportation contributes to the GDP, it's about 10% of our GDP. And we're not talking about just the movement of people, school children. We're talking about the movement of goods.
Yes.
And that includes your roadways, public transport. If you look at the revenue from the Transport Authority, a big chunk of it, majority of it is not from public transport. It's from commercial carriers.
Yes.
So you have to look in that context at what it contributes, how important it is to the GDP, and how important you provide governance and leadership to that sector. I think we have, over previous administrations itself, and my party has to take some of the blame also, that we have not given the focus on the importance to transport as it ought to get. I can say the last attempt was on the PNP administration when we took persons out of what we would refer to the patty pan bus system, and we brought in the JUTC to sort of modernize our public transport system, especially in the KMTR.
Yes.
And then we looked at the route taxes. We put a formal structure around it, but we have not gone any further since then.
Yes.
So there are many issues plaguing the transport sector. I think that overall we have, because of the lack of policy direction, the lack of infrastructure investment in the sector itself, we have treated it as, I would use the term, a bastard child of the economy. So we treat them as if they're hustlers and not business people.
But let me ask you this then. Is it that if you look at what this administration has done since coming in February 25, 2016, 2 terms, well, into the second term now, straight under Andrew Holness's leadership, is it a case of no policy, bad policy, or weak policy?
So let me start off with no policy and bad policy. And when I said bad policy, let me start with the latter. Bad policy. 2016, 2017, you had about 2,000, under 3,000 hackney carriage operators in the Kingston Metropolitan Transport area.
Right.
You're now looking at 6,000 plus in Kingston Metropolitan area. Hackney carriages. Hackney carriages are not like route taxis where they have a specific route that they have to.
Yes.
They can traverse anywhere, stop anywhere, pick up, drop off anywhere.
Yes.
Now, if when expanding that number and you don't put any regulations behind it, any platform for them to operate under, then what you're going to get is chaos, which is what we're seeing in the Kingston metropolitan area. Second, failed policy of not treating the JUTC as a going concern, or the lack of policy. So we have been hearing in 2016, 2017, the JUTC had about between 380 to 400 buses. They're down to 250 now. Portmore, which needs 150 buses to move the 77,000 passengers, only have 40 buses.
Yes.
So the longer, because of the lack of direction, taxpayers are now, putting in what, $8 billion this year into the JUTC.
Yes.
And you're still having losses of about $4 or $5 billion. So the bad policy and the lack of policy has brought us to this point. On top of it, when you look at the strike that has taken place, and the strike was on Monday, we knew, including the government, the minister, and ministers within the administration, knew that there was unease in the sector. And I said to one of the ministers, and on other interviews, if it were I that was the minister, I would at least have to reach out and say, come, let's sit at the table. Because I've never gotten a feeling that the first instance from the sector is to protest.
Right.
And if it is that after the protest that the minister decided to meet with them, then something is wrong in the approach.
But you would agree, though, because what the transport operators themselves have said is that after a series of discussions with the minister and other highly placed operatives, call them officials then, that they weren't getting give on the points that they wanted the government to make concessions on. And so they had this meeting and they had a vote, and the vote was for strike action. So the government could easily say, well, we were talking, but we weren't saying what they wanted to hear, and they went and pressed the nuclear button.
By all indications, they didn't get an answer from them until the letter, the press release on Monday. Because to what I understand is that the minister kept on saying to them, I have to carry it to cabinet. I have to carry it to cabinet. But the first thing when it comes to labor relations is at least having a conversation. They don't necessarily have to hear what they want.
Yes.
But then you have to cool the tempers.
Yes.
And then see. And also, there are some deep-rooted issues in the sector. And what I'm picking up is that they're not being dealt with. So the one that they feel like they have some, and I'm not saying that their actions are not right.
Yes.
Because in a democracy like ours, you can't break the law and then stick me up and tell me I need to give in to you.
Yes.
That we do not support.
Yes.
And I hasten to say that we do not support the abuse of passengers and those operators who wanted to go along their lawful way and business.
Yes.
And to lock down the sector the way they did is not something that neither myself as a shadow spokesperson or the opposition supports.
Yes.
Yeah? But there has to be dialogue.
Yes.
If there is not, then we support peaceful protests, lawful protests. Yeah? And every Jamaican has that right, but not in the way that it was done.
A little more on the composite, because I want people to understand the relationship involving hackney carriage, route taxis, which of course are for rural areas, but almost you have route taxis running amok in the corporate area now. Yeah, so you have hackney carriage, the route
Hackney
taxis
behaving as routes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Hackney, route, and the JUTC, and the crowding out effect is what I want to ask you to comment on, because how the number of persons who hold hackney carriage licenses and how they conduct business, and the JUTC itself and its sub-franchises and how they conduct business, and how that affects the numbers that the JUTC's profit is calculated on. So is it that the JUTC is being crowded out by other operators who are given licenses by the same government who owns the JUTC, and so that crowding out effect renders the JUTC's mission to make profits almost impossible. And at the same time, there are too many hackney carriage operators in the corporate area for them to even see their way, as they'd say in the streets. And so is that a real thing, this crowding out effect, given the number of people who hold licenses to move people, if we use the corporate area as an example?
Well, if you recognize of late the enforcement from Transport Authority, I mean, when last have you really seen them on the streets doing a lot of enforcement? And I think that that policy that they're carrying out of reduced enforcement is because of the failure to put adequate seats in the KMTR through the JUTC. So the JUTC has a license, like any other operator, with the Transport Authority, with the government, to provide, I think it's 40,000 seats in the Kingston area, or that. Don't hold me to the figure. But they have a license to provide a certain amount of seats on a daily basis in the KMTR. They need about 450 buses to provide that.
Yeah.
At a minimum, to provide that amount of seats.
And that's daily?
That's daily, yeah. So anywhere between 400, 450, depending on the peak period and thing. They're down to 250 now. So someone or something has to provide the balance of the seats that are required.
Yes.
There's a breach to fill.
Yes.
So, and because you have provided a hackney carriage license, you can't hold them to a route, because they can traverse in Havendale, they can traverse in Mona, they can traverse in any community. So I use the example, one of the hackney carriages leaving Papine to go to Halfway Tree, and he comes to the stoplight right by Mona and realizes that the traffic flow is moving slowly. He can come through Mona, go over Beverly Hills, come down on Old Hope Road to catch back Lady Musgrave Road to Hope Road without being prosecuted.
Yeah.
If that was a route taxi man, he would be charged for contravention of his license.
Yes.
And I'm saying that the JUTC ought to be held as any other license holder to provide seats. And it is because of the lack of policy of government, hence why the JUTC has reduced seats. The average age of these 250 is about 15 years old of the buses.
Yes.
Last time they had any new buses in the fleet was 2017, 2016.
Yes.
30 and 10 LNG buses, so 40 buses.
Yes.
Now, because of the lack of seats, you have a proliferation of hackney carriages, which the government has given them the license because there was a cap on how many in the KMTR. It was Minister Montague who said, Lego the thing, and allowed both rural, so you have a crowding out of some routes, and you have some routes that have less.
That are underserved.
Underserved.
Let's pick it up after this break. Let's take our break and come right back. Speaking with the opposition spokesman on transport in Jamaica, Mikail, Phillips, the Member of Parliament for North West Manchester. Back with us on the conversation, talking transport matters in Jamaica, consequent on that island-wide strike. I need to call it a strike, a disruption to the transport services provided by the private contractors who provide those services, withdrawing their services, trying to get the government to impose a traffic ticket amnesty. Mikail Phillips, the opposition spokesman on transport, is here with me, and we're talking about the transport from the perspective of how it is, what the lay of the land is, and how the operators are playing in it, and whether the infrastructure, the framework that exists for these operators to play, whether it is a result of bad, weak, or no policy from the Honus administration. Off camera, you said something that I think you need to say on air, insofar as the JUTC is concerned and this profit, because people see the subvention that taxpayers, of course, are compelled to pay to the JUTC to help it over a fiscal year. and they say 5 billion, 8 billion, and the company is not making a profit. Insofar as the JUTC's quote-unquote profit is concerned, is that a real thing, or do they only have to get up to a certain percentage of the output in terms of providing the services?
There's no public transport operation anywhere across the globe that is a profit-making center.
Yeah.
It is generally subsidized by central government. What the JUTC, the concept is that it would take care of at least between 70 to 80% of its operational, paying salaries, the operational costs of the JUTC, while government will give it subvention for the parts and those assets that it.
Hence why the contribution is called a subvention.
Subvention, right? So the last time that we had it, that it was providing at least 70% of, was in the last administration, Portia Simpson Miller administration.
Colin Campbell and Garnet Roper.
Colin Campbell as managing director and Garnet Roper as chairman of the board, that we were up to about between 450 buses in the fleet. We had a plan then to the administration to bring in 100 buses each year for about 3 years to start replenishing the fleet. That's why we did the sample with the 30 Chinese buses to see how they manage their smaller buses, how they manage the hilly routes, the smaller non-profit routes per se, and to see how best we can replenish and to have at least 2 brands within the fleet itself. So we had a plan going forward. We lost the election, and then we are back to where we are now.
Yeah.
And because when you look at the what is required for the JUTC, so just as an example, in the PAAC yesterday,
which you chair,
which I am the chairman of, so they got a subvention of $1 billion in the supplementary estimate. 500 million of that is for petrol, but then when we asked the question, is this adequate enough? The answer was no, to carry them down to the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
They requested $1 billion additional for petrol and only got 500 million. Yeah? A similar thing with parts. They generally ask between $2.5 billion for parts. They get $1 billion for parts. You can only fix so much and no more.
Yeah.
And the older the buses, the more expensive it is for upkeep.
Yeah.
So, the policy going forward, and I remember even when the IMF, when we were under that program of the IMF, public transport for the IMF then was not on the front burner.
Yes.
But you can't keep on listening to multilaterals like that use one suit to fit all.
Yes.
We have to look at our own situation here in Jamaica and do what is best for Jamaica. And I think that was one of the failures of this administration, because for about 4 years they have been promising new buses.
Yes.
And the weakness in the JUTC, they're going to use the excuse that it was that 2 years of COVID. The promises for buses was before COVID. And the breakdown in the JUTC has been happening before COVID.
Yeah.
And I keep on saying that we keep blaming management, but management can only do as much as the tools that they have been given to operate.
So let me tie this up for the viewers now, because we've spent time talking about the public transport architecture and JUTC at the head of that. And it's a reason why I led the conversation this way, because I want you as a spokesman to show my viewers how is it that ramshackle, disorganized JUTC causes problems elsewhere in the transportation continuum.
Yeah. Well, as you see it now, because the government owned and run bus companies providing at less than half the seats that's required in the KMTR, you have to allow somewhere for the remaining 50% or 60% to be found somewhere. So you basically let go the sector. But then you also have, in the rural areas, and even in the KMTR,
Yes.
those what we call the terminuses, the termination points, which are controlled by the municipal council. And this is a weakness in the system, which have these bus parks, taxi stands, as we refer to them.
So Spanish Town, Maypen,
Spanish
Linstead,
Town,
Old Harbour,
Mandeville,
Portmore.
Santa Cruz, Westmoreland. But they are really cash flow centers for the municipal councils. They were put in locations when you had few persons in the sector.
Yes.
We have grown the sector tenfold,
Yes.
but we have not looked at the requirement space
Yes.
or required space for those who we now give license to.
Yes.
So these taxi stands or bus parks are controlled by the municipal council. The sector is regulated by the transport authority. Bus parks have an overflow. So instead of providing more space for them, we send them onto the city streets. Then there are no parking zones. Then the police come now, they ticket these individuals who are operators, who are investors in it.
Yes.
Then you tell them to go in the bus park, but there's no space.
Yes.
So there's a conflict there.
And I'm happy you said that, because a lot of these tickets, and well, far be it from me to take up for taxi drivers, they are awful, many of them, not all.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. People would think that a man has 100 and odd tickets is because of bad driving, those 100 and odd tickets.
No.
A lot of those tickets will come by what you said. You can't find space in the park to load your car. You're on the road near to the park, and that policeman comes or woman comes and gives you a ticket because you're on a private space, operating a public passenger vehicle, which you ought not to be. But then again, where must I park because there's no space anywhere?
Yeah.
There you go.
And that's why I said there we have to take a comprehensive, a deep look, using data, using because we if you look at even in someone, let's use Santa Cruz, it's a primus piece of land left in Santa Cruz that we're using as a bus park. And if you provide, because I mean our vision is having a bus service from Maintown, from Mandeville to Santa Cruz, or from Kingston to Morant Bay, transporting school children and the elderly. Because if you look at the subvention that the JUTC gets, $5 billion to $8 billion a year, which is taxpayers' money, and the only beneficiaries of that taxpayers' subvention are persons in the KMTR.
Yes.
While you have 13 other parishes that there are no benefits. So a child in my constituency have to pay full fare from a mile gully to go to Mandeville, to go to Manchester High School, and same for the elderly. So we have to find a way in how it is we expand the service. But if we can't get it right in the KMTR, I don't see how we're going to roll it out.
You said earlier that this government is not operating the JUTC as a going concern, and my mind logged that, because I'm saying, a government in a democracy such as we are is, you anticipate it's going to be government in perpetuity, regardless of which party forms the government. And if the JUTC is a state-run bus company, then you'll always have a party administering governance on behalf of the state. So governance is a going concern, well into the future. Why would you say then, what has caused you to say that the JUTC is not being handled as a going concern by this administration?
One, go back to the policy of not improving the rolling stock, which are the buses, not providing adequate seats after 7 years in government. Two, there's no transport plan, be it in the KMTR or island-wide. The only policy they came with so far in the 6.5 years in government is really to just let go a man and give him a license. And so what you have is a system that there's no coordination between policy and what actually takes place out there for the safe passage of passengers, and not just a hustling for a man.
Yes.
Yeah? Secondly, is that if you're to look at the JUTC, and this might be on, what I'm going to say might be unpopular with the staff at the JUTC. But you can't have a bus system that is providing half of the fleet, having the same amount of drivers as if you had 400 buses, having the same amount of staff.
Yes.
That not even if there's a failure within the Ministry of Transport, that the Ministry of Finance or even the Prime Minister seeing it blatantly coming, as the Minister of Finance said to me in Parliament last week. He said, if it is one thing that I can't fail you for, is that you have been consistent on the JUTC. And this goes beyond politics. As an elected representative, as someone who represents a party which is a government in waiting, I think that there are some things that no matter which government is in power, or as long as you are in the House and you're an elected person, there are some things that I would love to see us leave better, even before I leave representation.
I take that.
Politics.
I take that. So here's the thing then. So two tough questions come up now. One concerning, well, let's deal with this fresh one first, and we'll go back to the space one and the parking and everything after. Because if it is that you are saying a logical declaration by you that, look, you can't have X drivers for 400 vehicles, but now you have 250 vehicles, you still have X drivers. It must be X minus something. What do you do with the overhang? What do you do with the excess drivers? What would you do, the minister?
Government is not working in a silo. Yeah? So the JUTC is a part of a wider government. If they have the skills of driving,
yes,
I am sure the first thing that I would look at are the different agencies within government. You have the NWA that have equipments, that have trucks and things. You have the Ministry of Health. You have different agencies within government.
So let me ask you straight: Are you sacking or are you redeploying?
I would redeploy in the first instance. I would redeploy. You have drivers who have been there that have been good to the system itself. That you take them into CMU,
Caribbean Maritime University.
Caribbean Maritime University. You have logistics center.
Yes.
You're teaching logistics there. You have the port of Kingston. Redeploy them first. So you have mechanics.
Yes.
You have, so I would take that as a first instance. Yes. Start redeploying them because these are persons with good training.
I'm happy you said that because people would have left the conversation thinking you want the wrong person to be sacked. And then for the other thing, you are the minister now and you have the problem of overcrowded bus parks, people picking up tickets because they're parked near the bus park, they can't get in. How do you fix that? With these small spaces in these crowded towns.
In 2022,
yes,
we ought not to have Jamaicans still driving in the back seat of a 7-seater without any safety mechanism. You have to look at new lands, meaning lands owned by government. In where you can put modern transport centers.
So you're talking about urban planning?
You have to, it has to be. You have to start there. I know persons feel that you have to terminate in the town center. But if you have bus parks or termination centers on the outskirts, and you have smaller vehicles carrying them into the town center.
So a ferry service then?
It's a ferry, we have to take examples from larger cities and work with it. And let's use even Portmore. The bus center that we have in Halfway Tree, when we left government, they were supposed to be on the Belgians. We were in negotiations. The agreement was signed for another bus center in Portmore.
Similar to Halfway Tree.
And it was going to be larger because of the size, where we had 500 parking spots for persons to be able to park.
We'll have to end. So you're saying the PNP had a plan to fix that?
We had a plan for transport. I am hoping, and this goes beyond politics, and I am willing to sit with the minister, I'm willing to sit with the Prime Minister and share ideas for the betterment of Jamaica.
Hear you on that. Thank you for your time, Mikail.
You're more than welcome.
All the best. That's the first half of the conversation. Back with more after these. And after taxi operators took protest action earlier this week, disrupting the public transportation system in Jamaica, the president of the main organizing body for those protesting taxi operators, the man leading TODS stands for Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, the president, Edgerton Newman, stops by to talk about what was gained, if anything, from the action taken by the public transport operators and what TODS' next move is. Edgerton Newman, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
The last time it was a bold bouncer.
You bold bouncer?
Today we chat.
There you go. Today we chat. I middled it the last time, didn't I? There you go.
You won.
Edgerton, the fact of the matter is the action taken by the transport operators flopped.
You know, in some ways, we learn a great deal from what happened on Monday. In hindsight, we could have think otherwise and do otherwise. But one must understand that when a group of persons make a request, you should listen to it and you should take a decision before it becomes too late. So on both sides, we have been talking to government for 4 months in recent times.
Yes.
With regards to a payment plan for scores of transport operators who, for one reason or another, receive a ticket. And in most cases, those guys go to pay their tickets, they pay their tickets and return to them unpaid. Thousands of tickets come back unpaid. Some guys refuse to pay because they're going to come back and have to pay again. There are guys who pay 3 times over for the same ticket. Secondly, a number of operators who operate within the Kingston Metropolitan Transport Region, and they operate taxis. And these taxis got a license to pick up and set down anywhere it's feasible for them.
That's Hackney carriage.
But within the corporate area, every inch of the roadway is painted yellow. They can't stop there. They can't set down. They can't pick up. The bus stops is not for them. If you stop at a bus stop, they're taxis. They say, can't use a bus stop.
Right.
There are limited or no transportation facilities for them to park.
Yes.
So they go to halfway tree, they stop on the red light for the passengers to come out.
Yes.
Sometimes the passengers go green, the light go green.
Yes.
The passengers are still coming out and somebody's coming in.
Yes.
They get tickets for that.
Yes.
Scores of tickets for that. We believe those tickets are unfairly given because the facility is not there for them to
operate properly.
Right. And I could name several other things.
Yes. But let me ask you this before you name several things, because I'm listening to you articulate the problems that the taxi operators have, real problems. If it is that you had chosen to communicate that way, to say, gentle people, we're asking for your support, you're talking to the public now.
Yes.
Because we are tired of paying for tickets multiple times. Twice, 3 times, the same ticket, because the system is bad and it's not reflecting that Edgerton Newman paid the $5,000 fine. It comes back that I still owe the same $5,000 fine. So we're protesting for that. We're also protesting because we don't have anywhere to pick you up and let you off when you want to come and go about your business, or you want to go home, or whatever the case may be. And the other thing we're protesting for is the way the painting, the color code, the paint code is used in the corporate area. Almost everywhere we stop is a breach of the law because they've painted us out of the picture and we can't stop. If you had said that to the public, I'm sure, Edgerton Newman, you'd have had a lot of sympathizers. But the way you framed it, that you want an amnesty no, and comparing it to the gun amnesty, you're comparing taxi business to murder, that was a major boo-boo.
You see, if both of us have a cricket match and your side tend to hit me on the ankle every minute, I fall, then I think I'm going to get angry at one stage. We have sat with government and shared these thoughts with them and said, listen, these are the problems we have.
But Egerton, the only reason I could with confidence say that your protest flopped is because John Public was not with you. And John Public was not with you because of the same thing we just said.
Absolutely.
You never told them precisely why you are taking the action. You know?
That is true.
You came up with an excuse that John Public said, but this is ridiculous.
Yes. We should have said because of all these variables.
Yes.
That is why we are asking for, maybe we shouldn't even use the word amnesty.
Yes.
We should ask for a payment plan to pay. We're willing to pay the tickets, but just want some time and for the police not to be harassing us left, right, and center.
But stick up in there because I want to thrash out that. Because I heard you say just now.
Yes.
It's not necessarily the payment, you know, but the fact that a man or a woman operating a public transport vehicle as a private investor is required to pay multiple times for one ticket. Nobody, even if you're rich, you don't want to pay for the same thing more than once.
Right.
You have said that that is the problem. So I want to understand, how is it that a failure of the government's collection system to record and reflect that I paid the one time and I'm not liable to pay again, how is it that a faulty system translates into an amnesty? I'm not understanding that.
Absolutely. Now, I'm happy you say faulty system.
Yes.
Because that's a real fact. The system is flawed, and the government admits that a tripartite issue between the tax office, the traffic court, and P-STEP, it's not working together in unison. And so when you go to the tax office, you pay the ticket. When you go to traffic for a printout, the ticket that you pay for at the tax office returns, all right? And many times over. You know, we have several incidents of that. A man said, listen, here's my tickets, I can show you now.
Yes.
350 tickets, I've paid for them. Millions of dollars, sorry, thousands of dollars. But, and they show the receipt they paid for.
Yes.
But here it's again from a printout, now all the tickets come back as unpaid.
Yes.
Right? So all we're saying, yes, we could prepare a document and show to the public what we're talking about.
Yes.
So all we're making it things short and easy for us. And we thought it was spicy to say, government, we are willing to pay. Could you give us an amnesty to pay over people?
But I have a problem with that though, Egerton, because I can't understand how the hard-working men and women in the transport business and taxi bus work is very, very hard.
Very hard.
I don't understand how you would be willing to pay again for something you paid for. I think that the energy should be saying, listen, we want you to implement a good system. No, implement a manual system then. Put a man and a woman on a long table with a stamp and a receipt book. And when I come and pay you set down the number of the ticket, you write it down against my name, you stamp it, you put a seal on it, you tear it out, you give me my copy, you keep yours. Because even if I go back as basic as that, I want a system where the payments can be recorded. Why is it that I'm thinking that even though you have paid multiple times according to you and your members, you want to pay again for it? It doesn't make sense.
And we challenge the system.
Yes.
So a number of us take these tickets to courts. It takes us 9 months, 1 year, 15 months to pass that through the court. You know, if I go to court, if I'm a driver and I go to court 10 times, that is 10 days work from here. Right?
One day you did. One day you did,
I said to myself, you know, put on a ticket here, sir. Can't bother. I go work. Come have my kids to feed. You will get a check at the end of the month for your work. He gets his pay at the end of the day. If he does not work, he has no money. So he prefer to leave the ticket one side and go, or leave the court and go and pay until the ticket become a warrant.
I understand that, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But again, I'm saying, if it is Egerton, Newman, that the issue is with the system and the system not accurately reflecting the transactions on behalf of the drivers who owe fines for tickets they get. Why am I not sensing from the transport operators an aggression about the system being improved, or even a suggestion from you? You're full of ideas and your team to go back to a basic manual collection payment system, because the current system, the interface is flawed and it's not reflecting the fact that you paid. That's what you should be putting your energy behind.
And you know, I'm not saying we have not done that. Maybe not in the eyes of John. But the point must be made, even the new e-ticketing system comes in, We said already weeks ago, months ago, that the system can't work.
Yes.
Because when you give me a ticket, I'm in Hertfordshire, you give me a ticket, I put it on my dashboard. 3 hours after that, all you see on it is a piece of paper.
Yes.
The printer's gone. You put it down for a few weeks,
Yes.
it's gone.
Yes.
By the time you go to take it to the tax office to pay, there's nothing on it.
It's like a receipt from the Chinaman shop.
Absolutely.
The ink disappears fast.
That is
Yeah.
it. And so there are a myriad of things that cause us to be in this project. We can't talk to police. You know, when we call a meeting once in maybe 5 years with the head of the police department, they're not listening to us. You know, they're not even accepting our request for a meeting. Some commissioners will accept. We have a very good man at P-Step, Mackenzie.
Yes.
He will meet with us every night.
Yes.
But sometimes maybe he's taken from us. We'll have to go higher.
But Edgerton, what's the wisdom of meeting with the police if the police only enforce? Remember, they don't craft policy. They don't write laws. You need your lawmaker, your policymaker on side.
They can make recommendation.
Yes,
right?
but
when I go to the minister on Wednesday or Tuesday, he said to me, "Listen, this part of it is not for me. You know, it's for the police." So every section that we mentioned is just another minister, right? We petitioned the 3 ministers, you know, 6 weeks ago, you know. We prepared hundreds of us write petition with the same request you're talking about.
Yes.
To the Minister of Transport, to the Minister of Justice, to the Minister of National Security. The Minister of Transport responds because he's our official boss,
yes.
right? The other ministers don't say a word, and these issues affects them. So nobody respect the public transport. So Newman could have talked to them blue.
Yes.
Until we did what happened. Well, unfortunately, what happened on Monday.
Yes.
Now everybody want to talk.
Yes,
right? You know.
Oh, so you're getting audience now?
Absolutely. But from you, from government,
we
from civil society.
We just highlight the issues. I respect the power you're according to me, but more important than us, the journalists.
Yes.
You say that you've petitioned Transport, Justice, and National Security ministers, and only your direct boss, Transport, has answered.
And I've written to the
what
Prime Minister.
What about Justice and National Security? Have they responded after what you did on Monday?
Not even a word in English. I don't want to speak in Spanish because I can't understand. So nothing from them, and nothing from the Prime Minister. Yes, his technocrats in the ministry.
Well, they did issue a statement from the office of the Prime Minister, under the Prime Minister's hand.
You know,
and he did address the issue at the state of emergency press conference he called recently. He spoke to the issue.
Is that state of emergency was impinged anyway on what happened the day before?
I'm going to ask you that in the next segment. Stay where you are. Edgerton Newman is the president of Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, TODS, in Jamaica. They organize bus and taxi operators in Jamaica. It's an island-wide operation, and they embarked on an exercise recently that did not get the desired results, but at least he says people are now listening to the plight of the transport operators, and he hopes that provides the pathway to a resolution being found. Back with more in the conversation after this. The island-wide protest by taxi and bus operators in Jamaica may be over, but the problems persist insofar as the transport sector is concerned. As you'd have heard from the opposition spokesman on transport, Mikail Phillips, earlier in the program, it is a problem a problem coming from the very top, where the JUTC exists at the top of the pyramid, and how the lack of structure there, the lack of structure in the overall transport sector has caused problems to exist at various levels. The operators are frustrated, the public is frustrated, and the government is losing revenue insofar as the performance of the JUTC is concerned in this ramshackle system, according to the minister, the shadow minister of transport. Edgerton Newman, the president of Transport Operators Development Development Sustainable Services, TODS, I won't get it wrong, is with me to talk about what went wrong with the planned protest, well, with the executed protest, and more importantly, what from here. So let's start with the obvious thing, the state of public emergency declared by the Prime Minister in 7 parishes, parts of Kingston and St. Andrew, and of course the known trouble spots across the island. It coincided with what should have been day 2 of your planned 3-day protest action. Do you think the Prime Minister put that measure in place to curb the effect of what you were doing on the road?
Put it this way, TODS did not note a 3-day withdrawal of service. We said we start off with 1 and listen to what the government has to say. But the wind went out to say that it's 3 days.
Yes.
So Monday night when I heard about, after I finished a discussion with the Minister of Information, 12 p.m.
Yes.
Monday night, something came to me on my phone to say a press conference will be on tomorrow morning. So I text back Minister Morgan and said, oh, you didn't tell about this press conference? Because every single transport operator, I can tell you, was glued to some media or to hear exactly what's going to happen in this press conference, because it's about the transport, what happened on Monday. So when we saw it was not about what happened on Monday, but the notes coming from the Prime Minister could suggest it has something to do with what was going on. You know, we read between the lines. And a mayor called me and said, Newman, you're in trouble. Because we're in trouble because hundreds of soldiers is in my town. And I said, what? And he said, it's because of what you did yesterday. And then we start to realize that, listen, it has something to do with what happened on Monday. And so while it is not pronounced that way, we think that the government expects us to have 3 days of protest. And he really put in that system with the, to allow everybody to go home. So we could not have a demonstration on Tuesday. Yes, something happened. Some little pockets of withdrawal of service continue. So I have to go out and say, listen now, at 2 o'clock on 2:30 on Tuesday, I have met with the minister and we have some good notations and we get some good recommendations. Please, everybody go back to work. Immediately, everybody went back to work. So
the government, you were outflanked by the government?
Yes, yes. They have the powers. We know we are nobody from day one. So, you know, we just went back to work. You know, but our voices were heard. And we think we make a statement, and a very strong one, maybe too strong. And there are persons within cabinet who thinks that, I mean, we were rude and out of order, and we create chaos in the city. We close down schools. The business people come out and said they lost 50% of
the PSOJ and the JMEA,
so, and they accused me, and I apologize in several quarters. And I do on your Sportsmax program right now apologize to the public, to the commuting public, and to the government for the small pockets of indiscipline that took place on Monday. And I'm telling you, if we get the support of the public, we have a program now that will change that, and we won't have to go that way again. But what we're asking for is dialogue. Conversation is important, and we're asking government to talk to us, work with us. We want the best, because of our work. The streets is our business place, you know. People needs us, and we want to provide that service.
And behind the wheel is your office. So hear me now. How also was this protest, well, your perspective on the behavior of some of your members who were very aggressive to other colleagues who didn't want to participate in the strike, maybe not TODS members who wanted to do their own thing, and also hangers-on, people who don't even have a driver's license, who are seen taking people out of vehicle and roughing up people, that also undermined your efforts.
The clown is not a transport operator. The guy who was using the stick to get the people out of the bus, he has nothing to do with taxi or bus. Right?
But your members allowed him to infiltrate. A hanger-on,
You know, listen, there was a lot of party taking place on Monday in the day. Massive roadblock party.
I saw it.
These guys get a boom and a cup with some rum, and even if they were passers-by, and they join in the fray. Right? And they now, after maybe having those few drinks, start to create anarchy. 99% of what happened on the road illegally on Monday was not that of public transport operators. It was our backup men. It was a part of the system. It was our load of men who like what's happening, get in the party, drinking some rum, and get out of order. And we apologize for that. It was wrong.
But Edgerton Newman, you know very well that a protest action of the kind that was embarked on and implemented on Monday, it is the nuclear option in terms of getting the attention of stakeholders. And you have admitted, and I'm very happy that you're big enough and gracious enough to admit that you got it wrong. It went so badly that you know very well you can't use this option again anytime soon.
Absolutely not.
It's out of your toolkit for now, for a long time, because the public doesn't want to hear anything about a taxi protest again, you know. How do you reconcile that?
You see, as I've said, the protest on Monday was a decision taken at 4:45 on Sunday. My members, my executive went with an open mind. If we did say no protest, we know the backlash would get from 37,000 public transport operators out there. We say yes, and we knew that there's no withdrawal service that could be peaceful. Not in Jamaica, not what is happening in the country. Listen, the social order in this country is at zero. So once you start a fire, some guys is coming with fuel to throw on that fire.
Yes.
Because there's no social order, and government must understand that, right? And I think it's important that the government speak to, act to the social order in this country, rather than taking the gun, point it at a taxi man.
Was it an approved message from TODS to its members that in explaining why we are protesting and why we have withdrawn services, use a juxtaposition between our position and the gun amnesty? Because I thought that was rather dunce, Edgerton Newman, and I know you to be a smarter man than that. So was that approved by TODS to say use this juxtaposition, or did men just act on their own?
You know, it was not an approved position. That was thrown in the mix by our operatives. Because, it has some facts to it. Because if I'm asking you for sugar, Daddy, I need sugar, and Daddy take up salt and give to me, I'm going to feel bad. But before that, the fact is that when you look at the scenarios, here am I asking for a time to pay what I owe you. You go to court, court says, yeah, I can give you a payment plan. I can organize your payment.
Yes.
The bank will say the same thing to you.
Yes.
That's what we're saying to government.
Yes.
Right? Now, when government is saying no, I can say, but how you make the gunman, they're giving 500,000 for a gun, and you're not giving, you can't allow us to pay. We want to pay.
Yes.
The gunman is not paying anything.
Yes.
I think it's a poor analogy. But
I allowed you to do it because you're my guest and I'm treating you well, and I expect that you want me to allow you to explain yourself, and I did. But Edgerton, that makes no sense, because here's the thing. Under the gun amnesty, which was articulated in the Parliament by the National Security Minister, Dr. Horace Chang, it said,
go for the bad men.
Yes.
Go for the gunmen.
Yes.
Don't give them time to come.
I hear you. But it said nothing about a reward for the guns carried. Because I know for a fact, hold on, that's different from the Crime Stop program that gives you a reward, and the police regular program that they offer an incentive for guns to be taken in. The amnesty doesn't ascribe or prescribe a monetary reward or reward of any kind for bringing in a gun. That's a different exercise, separate and apart from the police's own bring the guns in initiative. Okay? Let's get that straight. The other thing is this. The other thing is this. A gun, a tool of death, murder, mayhem. Yes? The country, the same social fabric that you speak of so badly torn, and you are very correct. The gun culture is a large part of the reason why the social fabric is as tattered as it is. Edgerton Newman, I can tell you as my friend, there is no way to juxtapose a gun amnesty, which presages the implementation of draconian measures for possession of illegal firearms. There's no way to juxtapose that and an amnesty to allow you to refinance or reorganize the payment of traffic fines. I'm sorry.
The word amnesty, as I said before,
wrong word.
Yeah, the wrong word to use.
And the idea, I can understand the idea of saying, well, if you gave something here, give us another ones here as well. But that's where you lost a lot of the public.
And I think, well, you know, I don't think that, I think the public had the wrong perception when we asked for amnesty. They think we were we want to clean the slate and don't pay no money and that sort of thing. And so we, as you rightly said, we did not articulate the process clearly. Understandable. I can promise the public that we have learned from that.
You're learning a lesson.
Yes.
Here, last thing before we go, we only have a minute left. I want to hear you and Todd's, and I want you to give the public a commitment that you'll be lobbying with your collaborators, your experts, I know you have attorneys that you work with and everything else, you take advice, how to solve the problem of the lack of bus taxi parks for your members, forcing men and women to have to park on the roads, inviting police to finish a whole book of tickets on them in any given day. That, I think, is a problem that is worth championing, and I'm not hearing Todd's say, well, this is an alternative. This is how you treat with the problem. I want you to give a commitment that that will be foremost on your agenda.
Being here just now, I'm coming from a meeting with a minister, and I won't disclose the discussion, but we're on the same line. And we'll be holding a press conference early next week to look at the transport sector from a different angle. One of the things I want to mention before I close is the whole issue of the development of the individuals, the human resource development of the sector. We're at zero. Training and development is a must. We just signed an MOU with the TPDCO, Team Jamaica Training Program, to ensure that every single transport operator is trained under the Team Jamaica program. We signed the MOU with the minister already. We're just waiting on people like you to help us to fund it, because a lot of money. So we are on a track now. You won't be seeing any demonstration right now, but what you'll be seeing is the government looking at how we operate in terms of infrastructures. Not even one taxi stand is not in Jamaica, right? And that must be noted.
Yes.
No parking facilities. In 4 months, you give out 4,000 Hackney carriage license. No parking facilities. Although the license, we must find our own parking.
Yes.
We are condensed with traffic in Kingston and St. Andrew. Our fare is at the lowest. A minister just said to me, you must get a fare increase now. You need it.
Yes.
A minister of government said that.
Yes.
So there are a number of things, but we are saying to you, we're not going to come to the public until we articulate our challenges to government.
And no more strikes for now.
Absolutely. No, I should not say that. There will be strike, but maybe the farmers and the other people.
Not the taxi operators.
And the media.
Yes.
Not the taxi operators. And not coming from where I sit.
Hear you on that. You've learned your lesson. That's it for the conversation for this week. Back with more next week.